Hey, what's going on, everybody? Boylon here for another video on Raid Shadow Legends. We have a special guest here on screen today. We have Mobile Gamer. We're going to be doing a little bit of a collab here today. What's going on?
How are you doing? I've been enjoying Raid from what I can tell as much as you have been.
Probably even more because you've been playing it a little bit longer than I have, and that's you're going to help me kind of roast slash gauge my progress here because it's about just over a month for me having a blast, and I want to see how well I'm doing. From some of the other people that maybe you've talked to, and you can tell me
Mhm.
whether or not I suck or not. And
And I'm no by means super expert, other than I've been playing it for 6 months. And you and I both have a good understanding of mobile games. And gosh, that was played a ton of them. And I'll be frank with you, when we recorded the video on my channel earlier, you're actually doing great, better than other accounts that I've looked at earlier from other people. That's for sure. Like, you've got a good handle of what's going on.
yeah, it was a little bit overwhelming in the beginning, but I think I quickly kind of understood like sort of what I needed to do. But we'll see. Right, I definitely fell into a few traps, and that's what I've learned, I guess, over the last couple of weeks, especially. And so maybe some things in this video will kind of help other people not make the same mistakes that either I made or maybe you made in your early game too.
Yep. It looks like it's going well. Like, you've done, looks like you got a good understanding of artifacts, but we've been over artifacts quite a bit on my channel. What do you want to look at today?
And before we get started with the rest of the video, I do want to remind people that if you haven't started an account on Raid Shadow Legends yet, then you can download the game using the QR code in the top right hand of the screen, or using the link in the description down below to get yourself a free Epic Rector draft alongside some other freebie resources which you'll use. Also, by account level 15, you will get yourself this Ugo, who is one of the best epic characters in Raid Shadow Legends. I am using them every single day on my roster, so don't delay, and they'll definitely help you out in your start. Okay, and here we are in the roster page of my game. So I have almost 860s. So
Hmm.
what I heard was like it's better to focus on 60s than like
Yep.
getting a lot of characters to 50. And that was
Yes.
maybe a small trap I made with a couple of characters here.
Yes.
But I don't know how many characters that I have that's kind of quote unquote worthy of 60 right now because obviously my roster's not that big. Apothecary is
Right.
my most recent upgrade to 6 star.
So
So
scroll down. Now, you've not sold off or converted any of your epics or
no,
legendaries to food, one would hope.
no.
And you've got a secondary version of Rector
Yeah,
Draft. That's interesting. So are you using them in the faction
yeah, I
guardians
am.
to
Yeah,
get the bonuses? So
yeah.
you've got them paired up, and then let me just scroll down and see, because here's the thing about Raid Shadow Legends. You got two versions of Kale. I don't know why you would want to.
Yeah.
Well, I guess if, yeah, I wouldn't be doing that. Um, so here's the thing about Raid Shadow Legends is you're going to have a very different experience than that
Mhm.
I have had, because you're going to get different characters. It's
Right.
just that simple. So, like, your experience in this game is going to be unique to your roster, and there are so many characters in Raid Shadow Legends. I couldn't possibly know every character in your roster. It's literally impossible at this point.
Yeah.
However, some of the characters that you have, I also use daily. And if I look at your top 8, um, 6 of them I use all the time, and one of the so you've got the top row I use all the time:
Mhm.
Alice, Samukon, Geomancer, Rector Drath, Kale, and Apothecary. I use them all the time. Now you've got the Fat Man, who I've heard nothing but good things. Bracken the Fat. I don't use him. I don't even know what his kid is. And then the
He's
one to the left of, I don't know what he does.
Ugo.
You
Yeah, very good
know,
support character
Ugo.
actually. Yeah.
Oh, so, like, I know that these two characters are amazing. I just don't have them and haven't upgraded them, though. But this is like, and it's not like I need to know all 800 kits, right? It's
No.
it's almost impossible at our level of playing the game, and I think that's an advantage. I mean, there's unlimited theory crafting. You learn your own roster, you play with your roster, you tweak your own roster, you make your roster work, and that's kind of the beauty of the game. I can
Yeah.
tell you the characters that you've started. I've heard of all those two characters that I don't know about. I've heard of them, and I know they're good.
I think what I really love about this game too is that like Geomancer, for example, is I think somewhere like a 3.5-year-old character or something like that.
Yep.
And yet he's still, considered one of the best epics in Raid Shadow Legends, and that's absolutely mind-blowing. And I think we might have talked about that on your video as well,
Yeah.
is that just from the game that, we're used to covering, that characters are obsolete in like
Right.
a year or less, right, at this point. So having this is really refreshing because I could pull an old character, but that doesn't mean it's bad, because there's value in these characters in a lot of different game modes. And that's what I like, that I don't feel like my pulls are trash. Like I could, there's gems in there. Even if they're old characters, I can still use them.
Yeah, and as far as like if you have questions, I can speak at length on those 6 characters that I know because I've tweaked with them and played with them, and it's I think that's the thing too is I get a new character, I'll go on one of the websites and decide if they're worth upgrading or not,
Yep.
and then when I find one that upgrade, then I really dig deep because there's just so many characters in the game, and I'm aware of those other 2 characters they have 60, and I know they're very good. I know they're very good. I haven't had the need to dig deep on them. And then when you scroll down, I didn't see any other ones that I'm Neldor is a character I'm working on for Fire Knight, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's very good at Fire Knight and is very, very narrow. Then you've also got Sabbatha, the character, the Dawn Caller. That was a character that I was very interested in, but it was a part of the Mad Hatter fusion. And so the 4 versions of Sabbatha that I got ended up converting into Mad Hatter. So like you've got some great stuff. Like if she was your next character to go to 60, that would not surprise me. I found in this game that I need very limited use for damage dealers. Like it's nice to have a good nuker or 2, but it's like everything else, man, like reviving and giving speed to the team and buffing the team and manipulating and cleansing. All that stuff seems a little bit more important is what I've seen so far.
So you mean like support and defensive characters seem
Yeah.
to have a higher priority almost than
They have for
damage?
me. Yeah, I feel like damage is good, and you've got 3 amazing, well, 4 amazing damage dealing characters right there that and all characters have more than one purpose and function. And the way I look at this game, and maybe you'll agree with me, it's like you go into a battle and you need a tool to be successful in the battle, right?
Yeah.
Like let's say you're going into clan boss.
Yeah, let's take a look at that, right? Because the characters that I use for these different pieces of content, right, is gonna vary, and that's what makes the wide roster part really nice. So I'm not necessarily using the same characters on Demon Lord as I am for my other dungeons and PvE encounters. This just so happens to be my best team that I'm using for Demon Lord, which actually since I put Apothecary in, my damage has gone up, and of course Geomancer is quite helpful here as well.
Right.
But this is not necessarily the lineup that I'm using for my other dungeons, right? And so,
Right.
once you be more specialized, it's quite fun because there's always something to do with your different characters.
Right. And so you've got a character like I just want to call out what I think this game is about as far as it comes to rarity. So you've got a team right there on Demon Lord that is made up of 2 epics, 2 rares, and 1 legendary. And Alice in some way is just doing damage. Then she's filling 1 role, right?
Yeah.
And then you've got Geomancer that's also filling more or less 2 roles. He's putting accuracy down, and he's also putting what is it? Weekend, which is
and burn as well.
Weekend and HP burn, right? So, but he's mostly just doing damage, right? So that's very good. He's not doing anything to keep the team alive. Then you got Kale.
That's not true. Not true.
Well, no,
Geomancer's passive actually reduces,
his passive. The 15% damage mitigation on AoEs, which is a big deal actually, because when you drop him off the team and then you realize that I completely forget about this all the time. Oh, Geomancer's just damage, right? And then I drop him off the team and my team gets exploded. And I'm like not even knowing why. And Rector Draft does that too with Perfect Veil, right? That helps a little bit. And then she can revive, and then she could heal, and then she can put attack down. So what I'm finding is that like you have all the right tools to have a successful run, and the difference between like these amazing epics and amazing rares is sometimes there's legendaries that'll fill more than 1 role. That is really what I see this game, how this game works. It's like, wow, I've got 1 character that could do the work of 2 characters. Cool.
And that's kind of probably where I'm sitting at with regards to Apothecary. Like I'm sure there's characters out there that do, the bust that he does, but do, a little bit more, right? So that you're getting a little bit more extra value. Obviously, my roster is not quite there yet, and there's going to be some other things I think that I'm kind of missing that I'm sure you've done on your game that I haven't quite finished out yet. Actually, so you're in the way a little bit, but the mastery tree, right? So I just finished this for I'm almost done, but I got the Giant Slayer, right? This mastery on an Alice, and this has been really helpful in improving my damage in PvE. And masteries are really important. Unfortunately, it is super boring to farm, and I don't like the Minotaur farm, but that's a separate topic. But it's something that's really
So
important, though.
Minotaur is very controversial, by the way. I like you either spend the 800 gems right out of the
Yeah.
gate and bypass the entire process, or you load up a bunch of characters in there and it's like 2,000 energy each to get through it. I mean, if you're running like multiple characters, I mean, it's a lot.
I'll
It's
drop my picture here. You can see
yeah,
that I
that looks
actually
great.
spent the 800 gems on Apothecary to max it out because I was just tired of doing this. I kind of mathed it out, honestly, and I think you do save some gems by doing it manually, like doing it by the energy
Right?
way, that kind of thing. But it's not a significant savings that I'd
No,
rather honestly just,
no.
not have to farm this and just spend a little bit extra gems and to not have the headache of having to like sit there do it like however many times you have to do it.
And I think that the energy cost to gems ratio is like 640 versus 800. So it's like a difference of 160 gems.
Yeah,
It's something like that. And if it's but the time that it takes to
yeah,
do it, I
that's
mean,
true.
it's
Yeah,
just
that's
grindy
right.
as all get out.
and
So
and that's what killed me. And that's why I just decided to spend the 800 on Apothecary. But I guess once I have like 4 maxed out characters, it becomes easier because
yeah,
then I can funnel it into like the character I want. And that's
right.
kind of where I'm getting to. But that initial grind, like my Geomancer has like nothing because I haven't started that mastery grind on him, and it's super important. Like these are very important things to have
Yeah,
on each
yeah.
character, but it's just
And
not fun.
the thing that's super annoying is like once you start the tree and then you're like, I don't want to do this because the grind is so
Yeah, yeah,
long.
yeah.
You don't get any credit. You
Hmm.
don't get any credit for the work you've already done. It's 800 or
Yep.
nothing. It's a to me, it's one of the areas I think that they could improve the game is to like give you credit
Partial credit.
for the scrolls that you've already done. So like you're almost done with Kale. Maybe it only costs 200 to finish it off or whatever. And
I
if they
agree.
want to penalize you a little bit, that would be fine. And then second thing is that if the super raids, they're expanding it to many parts of the game. Why don't they have super raids on Minotaur? Minotaur is one of the more frustrating things I think in the game, actually.
They did recently add it to campaigns, so why have
Yep.
they not already done it to Minotaur? I think that's
I
definitely
don't know.
my largest gripe. And like you said, I was actually already halfway through the tree on Kale, but that's also when I was like, you know what? I kind of wish I just put the 800 in at the start because it was that bad for me that I was like, you know what? Well, it's too late now because I'm already kind of knee deep in it, and I didn't want to waste my gems at that point, I
Yeah,
guess.
so this is not a black and white conversation that we're having here. This is one of the parts of the games that I see debated a lot. So heavier spenders or heavy spenders are almost always just doing the 800.
Yeah.
The people that are min maxing that are willing to set it up and hit the odd, I start with before they go to bed and let it run for
Mm,
hours are typically running through it. Now, I have found that you can actually, if you have one character that can carry the other four, you actually can get some experience out of Minotaur and some silver
yeah.
and get the masteries. But it runs all night. It runs all night. It's wild, actually.
That's what I'm currently doing with Apothecary because he's actually only level 54. I still have some levels to go, but he's maxed out mastery. So I've included him in my team
Yep.
to funnel into my other characters, and I'm getting XP with. Usually, it's the reverse situation where they're not maxed masteries, and you're trying to get XP too. But whatever.
But
I'm just,
if you pull a top tier legendary and you're buying what's $10 for the 2100 gems, which is like
yeah,
probably the best deal in
absolutely.
the game, the daily gem thing. Like if you pull like a top tier
Nope,
legendary,
that's not it.
it, it might be worth spending the 800 just to get it done with and then have somebody really strong to carry you, right? Get them to
Absolutely.
60.
This thing.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean,
this is
yeah,
best. Yeah,
that
I
thing.
was looking for it.
It's yeah, that's probably as far as like no brainers in Raid Shadow Legends. That is it right there. It's $10, and what you get 2,100 gems over
Yep.
the course of the month, and those gems are super vital. I mean, especially for I mean, gems are so powerful in this game because you can convert 40 of them into 100 for you 122 energy. For me it's 130 because as you go up levels you
Yeah,
get
yeah, yeah,
more
yeah, yeah.
energy, but it doesn't ramp up. Like it's always the same price every time you spend the 40 crystals. It's always 122 energy, always 122 energy. It
Yeah.
doesn't like go from 50 to 100 to whatever, 200 to 400. I think it's great, but
Mhm.
anyways.
Let's talk about my dungeons.
Okay.
So there's a lot here, right? And so
Yeah.
when I first started Raid Shadow Legends, I was a touch overwhelmed. I was like, these are a lot of bosses, right?
Yeah.
I scrolled through
Yeah.
the map. It was also really nice too because we talked from our other game. There's nowhere near this kind of like
Yeah.
PVE related content, right?
Right.
But and so I started kind of making my way through it. You have the potion keeps here. You have the
Yeah.
general dungeons here with the new Queen of Hearts
Yeah.
event dungeon. There's some that I haven't even touched to be honest, like Sand Devil's Necropolis, Phantom
Don't need
Chambers. I
to.
don't think
Yeah.
this is something I need to work on.
You don't
But
need to right
let's
now.
just
Yeah.
start on Fire Knight's Castle on the right hand side here. So I'm at
Mhm.
stage 14. Maybe I could clear 15, but this is where I'm currently
Okay.
at right now on my account, able to farm 4 to 6 stars. So for a
Right.
month in, I feel like I'm doing okay. Like I think my progress is decent. There's how many other? Oh, there's actually quite a few. 25.
Well, see, this
But
is where you want to blow your mind, right? So there's 25 right here on,
yeah, and then there's the
and then
hard. Yeah,
there's a
yeah,
hard,
yeah. I'm not
and
here yet.
and the thing that'll blow your mind too is the hard has different mechanics, and so
Oh,
it
really? On
possibly
different
is
stages?
it's a different team. The
Wow.
team that works well, like the team that works well in
Yeah, right
normal
on.
may not function well in hard, and then
Mm,
then you start getting into very specific characters that work well in Fire Knight. So
yeah.
here's the thing: you don't need to worry about that today. You actually have a character, that Neldor character that we were talking about. He actually is one of the few characters that does well in the hard version of Fire Knight. Now, in the normal version of Fire Knight, you might be able to go all the way out. Let's say
This is
you
what
get
I
to
use
20.
actually. This is what I'm using with. I don't actually use Neldor in my regular Fire Knight. It wasn't until
Right.
later that I realized that he's more designed for the mechanics for hard mode. Because I did
Yep.
build him because I didn't know that. I was looking at the guides and I saw Fire Knight.
Right.
But these are the characters that I'm using right now for that. A lot of them are multi-hit type of characters, right? Because that's what you need to
Well,
lower the
and I
shield.
think you can do turn meter reduction on
Yeah.
the normal, and so that is one of the features that goes away in the hard one. And so you can use Geomancer right here to knock down the turn meter once he drops his shield,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
You don't want to do it until he drops his
Yeah.
shield,
Yeah.
right? So you got to get the and then on the hard on the hard modes, the number of hits required goes up, and then the mechanics change. So the depth of this game is insane. I wouldn't worry about it too much. Like you're probably just fine where you're at. You're going to have to slowly over time. The way that I see progression in this game is that um, if you focus on faction wars, so like let's just
Mhm.
talk about the game modes that reoccur on a daily basis. You get keys for certain things on every day, right?
Yeah.
You've got your Demon
Time
Lord
boss. Yeah.
key that happens every day, and I'm just going to go out and say that that is the most important part because the
Got one right
reoccurring
now.
rewards. Yes,
Let's run it.
this is
Let's run it.
yeah. So this right here is easily on something that
30
happens on
million.
a daily basis. This is where to focus your energy and resources, upgrade the gear, tweak the characters, look at what characters do well in this. This is where you're going to get the most bang for your buck. And so then how do you move your account forward with better gear, better so on?
Mhm.
Well, it's kind of a slow process. And one of the ways that this happens the most is getting more characters, getting well in the Demon Lord, expanding your roster, because Faction Wars then is going to step up to the plate. Faction Wars is going to do a couple things. As you go down further and further in Faction Wars, you're going to be getting crafting materials to better gear. And one of the most important pieces of gear in the entire game is perception. And perception is going to be in the forge. And that's a piece of gear that gives accuracy and speed. And it's like once you get better accuracy and speed, that improves most of your characters. Like your characters, let's say they're operating at 70% capacity right now. Better
Yeah.
gear will make them run up maybe to 200% capacity. And so it's a slow process of getting better gear. And that's why I kind of like the Forge Pass, which you may get into later. The Forge Pass
Yeah.
really kind of ramps up your access to better gear. And as you get better gear, because like right now, you're probably still using 4 and 5-star gear, or I still use 5-star gear, but 4-star gear, and you're probably still using common and uncommons.
Yeah.
At some point, you're like, oh man, I need only 6s. I only need legendaries or higher, and they have the correct rolls. Like it gets really narrow later. But at the beginning, you kind of have to use whatever you get, right? And there's
Yeah.
just only so much gear. And gear is something that comes into your account always. So how do you get better gear? Forge Pass, Faction Wars, the dungeons. But the dungeons just take such a long time to get in. And you need specific characters for each one of those dungeons. So like Spider is a different team than Fire Knight, than Dragon, and some of them are easier than others. So I'm sorry, show me the next dungeon. So where are you going?
So Dragon's Lair is where I've actually made the most amount of progress.
Yes.
I'm at 19 now, and so I can do. I might be able to do 20,
Okay.
which actually is a pretty big difference because now we're jumping from 4 to 6 star to 5 to 6
Yeah.
star. So I
Yeah.
might be able to clear this now. My time is not super good, and that's where I would definitely use multi battles for sure. Because if I am clearing it, if it's taking me that long, then I want to run that on multi battles. But there's a lot of speed really important, accuracy really important. So there's some really good pieces in here, I think, especially for early and mid gamers. I would say, especially to get started on some of these.
I would say a speed set is hands down probably the best new player set, easily like the best one. And there's something interesting about stage 20 on so we're talking about normal and hard. Stage 20 and normal, like if you're looking at from like an efficiency energy point of view on events, it's typically is the most efficient way to approach events on stage 20. And this is assuming like let's say some people will farm Spider 20, normal 20, because they sell off all the accessories and it's actually per energy spent like the best amount of silver right there. Like they're just selling all the accessories. Now, if you're looking for better accessories, you want to run it as high as possible. So getting to 20 is like a good place to be at for an efficiency when it comes to events.
So one question that I had for you, and I actually don't know the answer to this then, is what's the difference? For example, they're all 4 to 6 star. Do they have a different drop rate? Do they have a higher drop rate?
Oh, yeah. Yep. It all wraps
so they are better. So you would want to do, say, for example, the top one on the 12 energy, potentially, because this would have the highest drop rate? Or
okay, so this is very nuanced conversation.
Because it doesn't say, right? Like it doesn't tell me what the drop rate chance is for a 5 star.
It doesn't. So and if you really want to get into the nuts and bolts of it, post that I could forward to you later, where it actually analyzes what the energy per legendary drop is, what the energy cost per epic drop, because some of the events, the points are scored differently. And strangely enough, sometimes the lower cost energy are more efficient in events because the events award points based on what the rarity of the material. So it's super, and typically a lot of people are talking about 20 being that spot, but that only applies to events. I mean, the thing is too, is that you want to progress your roster, right, with better gear. And so you probably want to go as far as possible. And this conversation that we're having almost doesn't apply to hard. My understanding is that once you go to the hard, the gear is just better and you don't have to worry about the efficiency as much. So, but just push as far as you can. I actually kind of avoided a lot of the dungeons initially because I took advantage of the event dungeons, because the event dungeons have like the queen event dungeons.
It's really nice actually. It's a wide range of gear, but also includes the pinpoint accessories.
Yes,
which are really, really nice, and you can only get them here, I think, right?
Yes, well, for now, like this right here, like if you let's say you wanted to spend 1,000 energy in a dungeon to advance your roster, you're probably best off doing it here.
Well, so this is what I mean about the difference in drop rate chance. So you have one here at stage 11 and 12. 12 energy, 14 energy. They're all 4 to 5 star. So which one should I be running, right? So you're running the 12
I don't know the exact answer to that, to be honest with you. But I know this, that you want, because I don't know the math. It's super nuanced. We're having like a super nuanced conversation. It requires a spreadsheet. And the math has been done. But here's the thing, like if you can do stage 13 right there that has a percent chance at a 6 star, you're just gonna want to do that.
Yeah. That's actually what I've been running. And so maybe I should be doing more of this than the other dungeons. Do you like the event dungeon more than, say, running Fire Dragon or other ones if you're going to farm gear, or if you're recommending others to farm gear? Would you recommend the event dungeon?
So I guess it's whatever you want to do. If you're needing gear, I think that running this dungeon is the best. The reason to run the other dungeons is because of events. Yeah. And so sometimes you're heavily incentivized to run Ice Golem, you're heavily incentivized to run Spider, you're heavily incentivized to run Dragon Lair, because there might be multi events running simultaneously where the only logical choice is to run Dragon's Lair. But all things being equal, like no events running,
Yep.
I think you're going to be better off in the vent dungeon. And I can also see that your times are low too. So it's not
Oh
going to be
yeah,
super, super
24.
tedious.
But that's because there's no waves, right? You just go right into the
Yeah.
boss. It's a pretty easy kill. So yeah, 20 seconds for that on average.
And frankly, the pinpoint gear is better than any other. Well, that's a generalization. I hate to make these
It's good. It is.
generalizations,
It is
but
good though, and it has
it's
accuracy and speed. Some of the things that you need the most of in this game. Those are like the
yes,
number two, the top two
yes,
stats in the game.
yes. So pinpoint is so much better than the gear that you get in most of those other dungeons. These 9-piece
Yeah.
sets are where it's at. So you at the beginning of the video, you were talking about power creep and how the characters aren't really power creeped. In this game, characters are power creep, but not to the extent that you and I are used to in other games, because there's lots of characters that you're currently play with that are multi-years old. What they power creep is the gear.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? So, like, you're talking about a speed gear. There is divine speed. There's 9-piece speed. There's so many pieces of gear that are better than speed gear, like objectively better. So, what they've done in this game is power creep is in other ways. They haven't power creeped the characters as much. They've power creeped artifacts. They power creeped gear. They just do it in different ways, and it's actually kind of refreshing because you get a good character, you pull a good character, they're going to be good for a longer period of time. I mean, there's characters that came out when the game started and they're still useful today. It's really wild to me.
Well, I think it's what maybe we said on your video, but like over 50% of the character's power comes from gear, right? And so having that better gear.
Some people say 70, believe it or
So,
not.
I was being conservative, but
Yeah.
that it's a lot. And so going from say 4-star to 5-star to 6-star, you'll see that noticeable increase, but also making sure, of course, that you have the right pieces, because I think that's
Right.
important too. And we talked about how stats over sets. That it's
Right.
important that you have the right piece of gear, right? Or in this case, I have speed boots, right, for Wukong,
Right.
and making sure that you have speed boots from probably most of your characters. Would you largely agree that speed boots are pretty important?
Yeah, I mean, it's 90% of the characters you should be using speed boots, right? And the higher the stars, I mean, just a common 6-star boots, at 16 is going to give you 45 speed. It doesn't matter if they're uncommon, rare, epic, legendary. You're still going to get that 45 speed, and that's going to be the biggest chunk of speed. Now, we were talking about earlier that like clan boss is one of the most important ways of moving your account forward. And one of the ways that you upgrading the characters, using better characters, getting better gear, getting the characters. But the other way to get better scores in clan boss is going to be in the Great Hall. And now that you've unlocked live arena, you can start boosting. So you've got arena bonuses and affinity bonuses.
Yeah. So I've been working away on this, but it's a grind. We talked about that in yours too. It's a grind, chipping away at that.
And the accuracy requirements are going to ramp up on clan boss, and that's where most of your damage fall off is going to occur, is if you don't have enough accuracy, specifically on a character like Kale or Geomancer. So focusing on accuracy will allow those negative effects to stick to actually do the damage. And then you got the area bonuses right above that, where you can actually boost the damage and the output. You scroll down a little bit. One of them will be Demon Lord.
Yeah, I saw that actually.
Yeah, Demon Lord right there.
Oh, wow.
So
yeah, okay.
there you go.
That's probably something that I need to work on. I just need to get myself into live PvP more. I know it's a tough climb at the start.
It's slow. And one of the things that's good for new players that didn't exist for players playing the game like a year ago is you started playing the game since Chimera came out. So you're able to go into Chimera and get some relics.
Yeah.
That is an entire system and mechanic that just wasn't available to players a year ago. So you have an inherent advantage over somebody that started the game like a year ago, because you can attach these relics and your characters are just going to be stronger earlier in the place of the game that you're in now. You're 1 month into the game.
Yep.
And you have access to relics, which people did not have before.
And I think what's really great about Chimera that I'm finding is that it's not subtracting from other content. Like, I'm not having to make a decision between doing an attack on Demon Lord or doing an attack on Chimera. They're both there. So I'm getting essentially more rewards out of this. And it's also not oppressive to run because I can do one attack. I've already got the last chest on easy. Now I know it's easy mode, but I'm also doing my second key on normal mode. Is actually there we go, 3.79 million. So that's about the adept chest, right?
Yeah,
So I'm
and
still
the
getting rewards though on both of my keys, and I'm pretty early on. So this was leagues better than Hydra, but I'm not going to talk about Hydra.
and
But Hydra is quite
you're
impressive.
you're getting a fragment for a mythical. I can't
Yeah, that you
express
know
what a
what
big deal that is. That is
that
such a big deal. Mythicals in this game are beyond rare. Like beyond
mhm,
legendaries. Like as far as their scarcity. I mean, there are free to play players that have played the game for a long time, other than the one that you can Embers right there, and there's another
yeah,
one that you can get through a fusion, which is Mikaj, Lady Mikaj.
it's so
So people
cool.
don't have yet people don't have mythicals, and they're essentially allowing newer players like us
Yeah,
get a mythical fragments over time, as long as we're participating in 2 raids a week, two chimera keys.
yeah.
Yeah, you might have to, well, and you might have to play the chimera a bunch of times to optimize your team. I'm sure you win. You have a limited. But I got
That's
to
right.
tell you what this. You know what the optimal strategy for chimera has been for me.
Yeah.
Geomancer is the only character doing damage, and the other 4 characters are there solely to keep him alive
He's so
and to
great.
make it
He's
through.
he's great. His kit's really
That
really good. I think it's
that's
the stone guard. I mean, this is really helpful that he deflects damage onto the
Yep.
enemy as long as he has burn, of course. But that's just made a significant difference, I think. Of course, he also reduces a damage by 15%. But such a great character. I am
Yeah,
super lucky.
so Chimera is about making it to the 65th turn, right? That's what, and then it's like, how do you keep Geomancer alive all 65 turns? And so it's Geomancer with 4 support characters, right? And then I'm dead serious. And then because he's doing all the damage is reflected back because it's coming from the boss,
Mhm.
right? And then it's like, okay, and then the game. This is where the game becomes more nuanced. It's like, okay, can I get away with 3 support characters and add a second damage dealer? So that's
Yeah.
where, like, it's like, so like when I was talking to you earlier about it, I would upgrade these support characters.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because like you really need a bunch of different types of support characters, and you have
I
Sabbatha,
was
which I think is great.
I was kind of thinking about this guy, Strategos Islan. He's a legendary. So the problem is it's harder to book, but he does have defensive. Like he's got ally protection, defense
Hmm.
up for 2
Hmm.
turns, some shields and counterattacks, things like this. So I was wondering, but Sabbatha's good too because she also has
Does
the
he ever
increased attack.
revive?
No, he
Because
doesn't.
a
No, no.
revive is going to be one of the key
This
things.
one's big though. The block damage on the
Yeah,
revive and 100% turn meter.
yeah.
So
That's she's.
maybe she needs to be my next one to 60.
Well, I mean, I don't know if you heard the fuss about her when she came out. Like they come out with like 1 epic per like 3 legendaries, and like it's gotten to a place where like half the characters in the game are legendaries. I don't know if it's that.
Since I
It's
started
like,
playing, I haven't seen an epic release yet, so we'll see.
well, so they I think the ratio, just my feeling from playing the game for 6 months, is like they release they release 3 legendaries, 1 epic, and that's like the
Mhm.
typical schedule. And sometimes the epics are better than others. She's an amazing epic. Like they were like, people were losing their minds, like, wow, this is a really good epic. So like I would, if I was playing your account, this would be the character I would be looking at the most right now.
I actually got her for free. So when I first started the game, the Mad Hatter event was on the fusion event for Mad Hatter was ongoing, and they were rewarding Dawn Caller Sabitha fragments in the milestone events. And I
Yep.
just happened to place really well in those, and that's how I got
Yep.
her unlocked. So I didn't actually pull her with a shard because she's a void character, right? Which
Right.
is a lot harder to do
Oh, and
typically.
and so I'm envious because I don't have her,
Oh,
because I had to use the 4 that I got from those events to get Mad Hatter, and
right,
I
right.
was I was operating under the assumption that maybe I could pull her randomly later out of a void shard, right?
Mhm.
Which and Mad Hatter changed my game, so it was worth it. But I really want her. Like she's a character I could use for sure in Hydra. But anyways, we got off track here. I'm just
Yeah,
so
it's
enthusiastic about the game. Yeah,
I
I'm just so, I was like, I love this game. Anyways,
I think the number one thing and why I like raids so much, and I'm sure you'd agree that there's just a lot of theory crafting in this game.
yep,
There's a lot of characters, but there's also a lot of characters that still have value too. And Geomancer's probably again the top one in my roster, old character, but still such insane value that even players now, other content creators, are saying this guy's amazing. And
oh
you
yep,
just never had that in other games. The amount of customization on characters, the different types of characters, gear, masteries, relics, which I haven't dabbled in a ton because I don't have a ton of them, but I have some
right.
anyways. There's just so many different ways to build a character that it keeps things being fresh, if that makes
Yep.
sense.
And frankly, there's like going to a video or looking at a website, there's only so much it can help you on any given task because it's dependent on your roster, right? And so like I put together teams that just worked and it wasn't like any information I could get from an outside source. It was just me tweaking my roster and playing with it and seeing what works and what, and that was a good feeling. I don't know how to explain that. And
Yeah.
it was an experience that was 100% unique to me and the roster that I had. It wasn't like there was like a prescribed instructions on how to be this boss. There's general directions which you could read in the tooltips on how the boss can play, but it's like I got to figure it out on my own and beat the guy, right? You know what I'm talking about, right? You've been experiencing it a lot.
So what you mean is there's thinking involved, that you're having to
Yes.
think a little bit more to play this game.
Yes, and like for me making a suggestion to upgrade Sabbath, it's just a suggestion. I don't know. Like your roster is going to play so different. Your early game experience is going to be so different than the one that I had. All I know is you got Geomancer and he's amazing, and that you got to jump up and down. Geomancer is so good.
And the other big luck that I got was I happened to pull a 6 red kale somehow.
Oh, that's a big one too.
Just out of the blue. He was focused obviously in my pulls, but I think there was an event going on a couple weeks ago where they increased the chance of 5 and 6 star pulls, and just
highlight that. Highlight that because that's not super obvious. The wish list in the summons, people Ultra like I missed it. Yeah,
over here.
Yeah,
and you can choose characters from your roster that you own to increase the chance of getting the souls, or I call them red stars. That's what I call it, anyways.
They're red stars
for your characters, and you can choose from your roster. And I think that's a really cool system.
Yeah. And then when you get like Kale, you've already pulled Kale off. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, so
there you go.
And he was that's how I got it. He was on there, but there was an increased chance, I guess, to get higher stars. Just happened to get him. Super lucky. I use him every day, so I was really happy about that. Same with Geomancer. I pulled him, and that was the first immediately. I dropped everything I was doing, took Geomancer to 60.
Something that I made a mistake with on the Altar of Souls, like that I kind of wish. So when you open, like let's say you save them and you wait for an event that gives you bonus double drop rates on the 5 and 6s, something, because they do that. They play with the drop rates all the time, so they incentivize hoarding, or they have an event that gives you points for doing that, maybe clan versus clan. That currency that you get right there when you get to 10 for 10, that currency right there, you have a couple options on what it can be converted to. And I feel like I was converting them into more soul stones, and I would have been better served converting them into the soul essence. Because here's the thing is there's so many characters in the game, and really upgrading the character that I use every day matters a lot more. It's just that simple. Like if Geomancer was showing right here in your store, upgrade him, right? And then it's like I was converting that currency into shards that ended up producing useless characters where I could have focused fired on my Geomancer. So I really wish I hadn't used that currency on the shards and I had focused on that on the individual.
So that's actually what I did. You might notice that I have a few 1 red stars on some of my characters. That's because I bought them directly from the store. So when I saw them, I just went in there and I bought directly.
Well, and getting a single star to use the blessing is huge because then you have the mechanics of the blessing, which would not be there if you had 0 stars. So getting a single star is, well, but most importantly, you get the mechanics of the blessing, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so it's great.
Stats, of course, is great, but yeah, just even having that unlocked on your character.
Well, go to the very top right there. Go to the very top. All the way to the top, the very beginning of it, right there.
Oh yeah.
Or keep going down all the way to the top where the description, the other top, right there. Whenever this champion hits an enemy, it decreases the defense until the end of the round, occurs once per hit. Well, that is enabled because you have a 1 star. That exact mechanic, because you have a bunch of choices, right? It is turned on when you get a 1 star. So getting a 1 star on every character matters because then you're going to get that decreasing defense, and decreasing defense is such a big deal in this game. Defense actually really matters, and bypassing defense is huge. And that stacks towards throughout the battle, and that is what's giving you a better clan boss score. And if you didn't have that, it wouldn't be that your damage would go way down.
And that's what's so crazy about the game, because there's just so much customization. Like, we didn't even get to really talk about blessings, but like there's just like a screen here with like so many different things that you can choose from, right? Like whether it's for PvE or PvP, this game has more customization for their characters than I think I've seen in a lot of almost everything, right? The games that we play does not have this level of customization on a character level basis.
Yeah, and the one thing I'll say is that it's a lot to absorb here in Raid Shadow Legends, and if you're starting to pick up the game and you're finding it overwhelming, there is if you go to the main screen and you just go through the missions. The
Yep.
missions are, and you're in the way of the missions there, but the Arbiter missions are it's a tutorial, and you can ignore a lot of the game and just focus on the missions and then trying to use the daily and finish the daily quest. So there's daily quest and there's advanced quest. So if you daily quest at a minimum, and then if you got extra time, you go for the advanced quest. And then it's just focusing on these missions. And because the missions are designed in a way to essentially teach you the mechanics of the game by, achieving certain objectives that require you to understand how it works. I mean,
Yeah.
it's the tutorial. It is the tutorial because logging into the game and just randomly clicking screens and menus and things like that it's overwhelming because it's a lot. But the missions really kept my interest in one direction, and like I knew if I just focused on the Arbiter missions, I was going to understand the game. It's the
Yeah.
tutorial. It really
I
is.
mean, it basically just takes you through a progression. It's a progression of the game essentially, and improving, what you're working on. So it's been a lot of fun doing this, and hopefully I can get Arbiter in due time. I think I'm doing okay, so we'll keep working on that, and maybe by the we'll see. I don't know how fast people can unlock it, but we'll see what happens by the 2 month period, I guess. And don't forget, if you haven't started playing Raid Shadow Legends yet, then make sure that you download using the QR code in the top right hand of the screen to get yourself a free Epic Rector Draft. Also, by account level 15, you will get yourself a free Ugo as well, one of the best epics in the game. Also, don't forget that you can use the promo code Monkey King to get yourself a free legendary Sun Wukong. We're not done yet. Also, there is Alice the Wanderer for a free 7-day login calendar that you'll get at the end of that. So 2 free legendary champions, 2 free epic champions. This is the best time to start Raid.
I think you're going to do it faster than I did. I mean, I was kind of late to the party, and then when I figured out how good she was, I was like, "Oh, a run don't walk." Arbiter will change your PvP experience, specifically in the RTA PVA, the real time arena, which
Yep.
is a hassle without her. I'm just going to straight up put her like I did not have a lot of fun in real time arena until I got Arbiter.
I can see that because I'm not having the most thrilling time, but I know I'm still early and, I still need to grow. I think we'll leave things there. I mean, we've talked about a lot of things. This game, I mean, it just seems like it's easy to talk about, right? There's just so much going on in this game. There's so much things to do that it almost feels never ending, which isn't a bad thing. I mean, it just that there's a lot of things that we can occupy our time with, and every day, you can decide to spend your time how you want to on progressing your roster. There's just so many nuances to the game that I think keeps us busy, honestly.
I'm a big fan.
Yeah. So we'll wrap things up here, everybody. Thanks for coming on to the show, Mobile Gamer, and having this chat with me about my roster and our experiences.
Yep, I had fun.
And for everyone else, until next time, stay safe and healthy, and I'll see y'all later. Well, I'm signing out.